Okay, so this game was the Advance Caro-Kann with a very typical mistake by white very early on, playing bishop d3, exchanging light squared bishops, and giving black a good advance French. So if you play the Caro-Kann or if you play e4, this should be instructive. Let's go to the game.
Hi everyone, Stepan here. Oh, I've beaten this guy twice. Okay, this is game 81. The last game was one of my worst games ever, and I'm trying to forget about it. It was just awful. I wasted time on nothing. I had no plan, and I just missed the tactic that I saw about 5 moves before I missed it. So let's forget about that game. Concentrate on this one. Bishop d3 immediately is an inaccuracy. The only way to justify it is to go f4, but it doesn't really work. When black gets to exchange this f5 bishop without any consequences, without having to move the h-pawn or lose a couple of tempi, then usually black is fine. So now I can go c5 straight away. On queen b5, queen d7. I can also choose to go knight e7, but I think I'll go c5. That's the most principled move, breaking the center straight away and playing an improved French. So basically, we have an advanced French structure where black doesn't have a bishop on c8, and if you compare the Advance Caro-Kann to the French, that's the main upside, which is why bishop d3 straight away isn't a good idea. And as I said, if white doesn't go f4, f5, then there really isn't that much to worry about. Now black is fine. Now this is just a French. Okay. So I could take and go knight e7. Seems okay. I'm gonna take. I don't want to deal with dc. So now knight e7, knight f5, putting pressure on d4. If bishop g5, I have queen b6. So that seems fine. The reason you take first in some cases is to just avoid dc, where white may be able to keep that pawn. Now this is a permanent target for the rest of the game. And I'm not saying black is much better or anything, but black should be equal. Yeah, the last game I just got destroyed. Now let's destroy somebody to make up for that. Okay, a3. That's slightly awkward. I'm guessing b4, b5, but I don't think there's enough time for that. So I'll just go knight f5, try to complete my development. Maybe go queen b6. Next move, win a pawn if my opponent isn't careful. Okay, so my opponent wants to go b5, but I have knight a5, knight c4. So bishop e7, b5, knight a5, knight d2, let's say. I mean, it seems okay. I could go a6, but I don't want to. Because if I go a6, there's knight d2, b3, c5. I want to keep the option of playing b6 without leaving any holes behind. Yeah, so I'm just going bishop e7. I'm not afraid of b5. I can also go knight b8, but I don't think there's a need to go knight b8. Also, when my opponent does this, if the pawn has advanced to b5, then c5 isn't a stable square. So the main downside of the Advance Caro-Kann for black is the lack of development. And if white's gonna go a3, b4, b5, then you sort of catch up, and it's fine. Okay, so my opponent does want to go knight a4, knight c5. So I'm gonna castle and go b6. If knight d5, I take with the queen so that I don't blunder my f5 knight. I think it was slightly more precise to go knight d2, knight b3, because that would have given my opponent the option to go knight c5 or knight a5. Okay, rook c8 seems to be the most natural move. What could be wrong with that? I don't know. So I'll go rook c8. Maybe I'll have knight b4 tricks. Maybe. Maybe knight e5 tricks. Okay, defense. Makes sense. Queen b6 makes sense now. Queen b6. If knight a4. Queen b6, knight a4 is a problem. Because then if queen a6, ba6, knight c5, maybe I just go rook e8 and f6 and break the position from that side. Or queen d7, f6. Let's do that. I want to connect my rooks. I don't want to do anything irrational. If knight a4, I still have b6. And I want to go f6 and break up the pawns. I'm not hanging g4 because there's knight h4. Or knight h6, but probably knight h4 is better. Okay. Now, if I go f6, what does my opponent do? f6. f6. If my opponent takes, I take with the bishop. f6. If I take, then knight takes. Seems okay. I feel like f6 is correct. But f6 is either really good or really bad. I can tell from experience. I don't think I have any tricks with bishop b4. I don't think I want to move anything actually on the queen side. So f6. I always have rook e8 to fall back on if I need to. f6, ef6, bishop f6. The pawn is attacked 3 times. If knight e2, well, I gotta do something. So f6 seems to be the most likely pawn break, so I'm gonna do that. I have to do something active, I cannot just wait. This is basically a French structure. So you play c5 and f6 to break down the center. Once the center breaks down, you can target the d-pawn. I'm not sure how white should respond. I'm expecting rook e2 or something like that to increase the pressure on e6. Because taking just activates my bishop and puts pressure on d4 and allows e5 eventually. My opponent doesn't have a light squared bishop, so e5... Okay, the d5 pawn is gonna be weak, but it's not gonna win a bunch of material if the pawn falls. So okay, let's say rook e2, fe5. If knight e5, I take, and then let's say rook e5. That will have been a waste of tempo. And then maybe I can start putting pressure on d4 with something like rook c4. If we trade knights, I have rook c4. Okay, so I take. I definitely take. Okay, and then I take again. So I was hoping I could go rook c4 on rook takes. And on pawn takes, my knight on f5 isn't hanging anymore. On rook takes, I could also start with bishop f6. Okay, so now we have a passed pawn. Now, this is something now. I could still go rook c4. Am I afraid of g4? No. Am I afraid of f4, f5? No. I have a knight on f5. How can I break down the queenside structure? I don't know. Rook c4 just loses to queen takes c4. So that doesn't work. There will be knight b5 in some cases. If I go rook c7, that loses. So maybe I go a6, b5, and then rook c4. I can also transfer my bishop to b6, but I'm slightly worried about knight a4 there, where I'm weakening d6. So let's go a6. I know it's a weird waiting move, but I want to prevent knight b5, and I want to go b5, because that will give my rook the c4 square and fix the b pawn. If my opponent goes knight a4 now, I can take it, so that makes no sense. And there's no knight b5 anymore, so and my opponent's bishop on b2 is pretty bad because of the e5 pawn. Also, if f4, there could be some tricks with bishop d8, bishop b6, or queen c7, queen b6, or queen c7, queen c5. If my opponent's pawn moves, okay, he wants to lift the blockade, that makes a ton of sense. Wants to go knight d4. So I was thinking, can I go b5, knight d4, bishop d8, knight f5, rook f5, but then there's bishop d4. I'm not in time to challenge the d4 square, but I still think I play b5 and rook c4. Because now rook c4 doesn't hang a rook. I can go rook c4, rook fc8. And I don't really have to react to knight d4. Because my knight is defended sufficiently. I mean, if you don't play knight d4, why did you play knight e2? Okay, now rook c4, bc4 gives me two connected passed pawns. And that is extremely tempting. Rook c4, bc4. Queen, where does the queen go? d2, most likely. Do I want two connected passed pawns? But my opponent will have a passed pawn on the b file in that case. And there is a good blockading square on d4, so I will not be able to control d4. But still, rook c4 seems very tempting. Yeah, let's go rook c4. Two connected passed pawns. I'm gonna have to lift the blockade on d4. Can I get my knight to f3? I don't see how. But I definitely need to play bishop d8, bishop b6 to challenge the diagonal. So I think I start with bishop d8. Because if knight d4, I go bishop b6. And if bishop d4, I take it and go bishop b6. If g4, I go knight h4 and I'm threatening knight f3. That should be over. Okay, so now I go bishop b6. Challenge the diagonal. I just don't want the bishop to end up sitting on d4. And if my opponent trades and goes bishop d4, I actually have queen a7. Ooh, do I have bishop f2 even on knight f5? Knight f5, bishop f2, queen f2, rook f5. Queen moves, queen a7 check, queen d2 or queen c2. No, I don't. Okay, now queen a7 is surely a great move. Oh, there's knight e6. Queen f7, knight e6. Queen a7, knight e6. Wait a minute. Queen a7, knight e6, knight h4 check. gh4. Rook takes f2 check. Oh, that seems good. Queen a7, knight e6, knight h4 check. If king h3, then unfortunately, okay, on rook f2, queen d5 isn't check. Oh, this is interesting. Queen a7, knight e6. Knight h4 check. If gh4, I go rook f2 and I win. Because if queen f2, then bishop f2, and that's about it. If Queen a7, knight e6, knight h4 check, king h1. Then I can go rook f2, and on queen d5, can I go knight f3? Threatening mate. There's discovery with the knight. Oh, it's too complicated. Queen a7, knight e6, knight h4. If king g1, then knight f3. If king f1, then rook f2. If king h3, then rook f2, queen d5. I am probably gonna hang the knight in the end, so I'm not sure I want to do that. Oh, it's very tempting. Do I have any other knight moves? What if I start with queen a7, knight e6, bishop f2, then knight f8. Yeah, there's knight f8, bishop e1, queen d5 check. Yeah, I don't think this works. I think my knight hangs on h4 in the end. So let's do something else. I've just wasted a bunch of time. Okay, let's go queen f7. Let's just make a move. I'm wasting too much time. I have two connected passed pawns, so my position should be good. If my opponent doesn't do anything now, I'll just take twice and play queen f3 and take the pawn on a3. I shouldn't have wasted this much time. All right. I'll just make some Luft for now, because my king isn't safe. I don't think my opponent's doing anything very active. And I do have to speed up. There was one chance to go queen a7, now it's gone. So we can start playing normal moves. Okay, I think it's time to switch our attention to the queen side. So I'm gonna go rook c8 and start pushing my pawns if I can. Because now if I exchange everything on d4, I can just push my c pawn. So okay, prevents that. Good idea. I'm not winning after c3 because after rook c3 my knight's hanging, my rook is hanging. And I don't really want to allow f5. But I could consider queen b7. Queen b7, knight e6. D4 check. King somewhere, c3. But then there is queen b2. No, that doesn't work. That doesn't work. Yeah, I'm gonna trade off the knight. Nothing works with the knight still on the board. What now? I'm afraid of f5. I don't want to allow f5. Okay, I'm gonna trade. Set up a blockade with my queen. So if my opponent's queen moves, I can play d4 check. If my opponent plays f5, I can just take it. If my opponent plays b5, I can take it. If my opponent goes rook b1, I can start pushing with c3. My opponent has two passed pawns, one on e5 and one on b4. But I have two connected passed pawns, so it's all about whose pawns are quicker in these endgames. I can push c3 immediately, because if that's taken, I have d4 in the end, and I just win. Because d4 is check. So if my opponent plays something like b5, I can actually go c3. I'm not sure how good it is, but I have that resource. And I've just spilled water all over myself. Excuse me. I'm down almost 4 minutes on the clock. I'm not sure if my opponent should move the king or save the b-pawn. It all seems risky. Because, okay, let's say rook b1, c3. That seems very scary. Wow, what? Can I just take? So my opponent wants to go f5. That much is clear, but I think I do take the b pawn. Why wouldn't I take the b pawn? Because on queen a7 I have queen b2. On f5, don't I have queen c5? Queen c5? Do I have queen c5? I think I have queen c5. Queen c5, queen c5, rook c5. Fe6, king f8, rook f1 check, king e7, rook f7 check, king takes e6, rook takes g7. That seems winning to me. That seems winning to me. Okay, now surely d4 is good. d4 takes, queen check. Yeah, has to be good. Oh, he plays f6. All right. So who's quicker here? I don't think I'm afraid of f7 check. I don't think I want to go g5. I'm not even sure queen d5 is a good move. But I think queen d5 followed by rook b8 seems very good. Especially if my opponent doesn't go to the first rank. Okay, let's throw in queen d5. If my opponent goes here, then I definitely go rook b8. Oof, yes, rook b8. Is there a defense to that? Rook b8, f7, king f8. Rook b8, what else can my opponent do? Rook b8, rook b8. I don't see it. I'm playing rook b8. fg isn't a check, so that doesn't work. Okay, is there a defense? Rook b6 check. Oh, there's... I don't have a g-pawn anymore. I should have played g5 first. Idiot. Yeah, I should have played g5 first. But I can still go... I can still go rook b6, king h4, queen d8. If queen f6 takes, e takes. Okay, I have to move. I have to move. On queen f6, I think I'm winning. that's the only move, because on king h5 I go rook a6, rook h3, sorry, mate. There's g5, but that doesn't work. Queen f6 is the only move. It has to be. What am I missing? Queen f6, ef6, c3, rook f1, king f7. Doesn't work. I'm just winning. Yeah, I think I'm winning. I think on queen f6 I just take and win with c6. I mean, there's only one move. If you go king h5, surely rook h3, king g6, queen e8 is mate. Maybe it's not. Maybe there's a way out, but it seems incredibly risky. Resigns? Why? Okay, I mean, it's probably losing on queen f6, but let's have a look at it. If you're like me and you think practicing against the engine is boring because it either crushes you or plays like an idiot, try playing against Nocti. Nocti is a human-like AI that's going to adapt to your strength, is going to play like a human, try to trick you like a human, and challenge you on your own level. The first thing you can do is, of course, assess your rating, and you can play a rating test against Nocti. Yeah, the only move is g4 and then queen f4 mate? Yeah. Good. Yes! 2557! Come on! It's going to tell you your strength, but there are many more features. The first thing is, when you play Nocti, you get instant feedback, and all of your moves will get sort of color-coded. Nocti will immediately tell you if you made a mistake. That way you can ask Nocti to see where you went wrong. You can play games in openings you're trying to learn. So you can import any repertoire you want and play Nocti in that specific opening. Just go to repertoires. I've imported the Hillbilly when I was doing the video on the Hillbilly, but you can obviously create any repertoire. Just paste the PGN, and if you, for example, play the London system, you can play the London system against Nocti. Flashcards are an excellent tool, and I've spoken to Samuel, the owner and inventor of Nocti. He's going to make them even better. Flashcards are basically the mistakes you made in your games. Nocti is going to make you pay attention to them, and in the future they're going to be grouped according to theme, so it's going to be even easier to navigate your mistakes. One of my favorite features, if not my favorite one, and the one I use the most, is themes. So you can play Nocti in any specific position you choose. So if you go to your themes, you can see that I've made quite a few. So let's say you want to play out this position. This is a position from Spassky's game where he triangulated perfectly. If you're trying to practice something, you can create a new team. Just add an FEN or a PGN and play it out against Nocti. That way, if you have an endgame you would like to practice, you don't have to find an actual human to play against, nor will you have to play against a 2800 engine or against a 500 engine human. If you would like to check Nocti out, you can follow the link in the description, and if you would like to get a 64% discount, use the code HANGING Pawns. Thank you very much for this. Thank you, Nocti, for sponsoring the video, and let's get back. Okay, so queen f6 takes, c3, rook f1, king f7. Is this winning? This is winning. Yeah, it's winning. Someone said in the chat, and I guess queen f6, ef6. So they were looking at the same line as me. So let's have a look at this from the beginning. So bishop d3 is an inaccurate move. And as you can see, black is equal. I'm trying to increase the size of this thing while I play the game, and then I will decrease the size and show you the engine evaluation as well after the games are over. So now you can see the engine eval bar. Bishop takes, queen takes, e6, c5, and it's just equal, which normally you shouldn't have an equal position as white. Out of the opening. Okay, knight f5. Should have gone queen b6, but bishop e7 is okay. Castles is okay. Rook c8 is okay. Bishop b2 is a mistake. Queen d7 is fine. I don't understand g3. Okay, I played f6. f6 is either really good or really bad, but in this case, it doesn't change the evaluation much. It goes from minus 0.3 to 0. h6 was the best move. I would never play h6. It makes zero sense to me. I still don't understand what it does. I understand a6, but I didn't want to do that. So, okay, takes, takes. And the best response was knight e2 to f6. Okay, takes, takes, knight takes, pawn takes. Here I played a6, which is fine. Knight e2, b5. Rook c4, yes, now I have an advantage. Two connected passed pawns. Bishop d8 is correct. Bishop b6. Okay, I'm winning according to the engine, so I wonder where I'd messed up. Does queen a7 work? That's the question. So I played queen f7 in the end, and it turns out to be the best move. But let's look at this. Takes, knight e6. Knight h4 is winning. Okay, I was afraid of king h3. Oh, queen d7. Moron. There's a pin. No! I didn't see that. No. I was gonna go rook f2, blundering, and of course queen d5. I saw this, and then my knight's hanging in the end. But I just go queen d7, defending the pawn, pinning the knight, and it's over. Because I take on f2 in the end. Okay, so I did have queen a7. Unfortunately, I didn't play it. After having lost like 4 minutes calculating. h6. Okay, it's all winning for me according to the engine. Queen b7 is good. Okay, I don't know why my opponent had given up a pawn. But okay, I was gonna say that if, let's say, rook b1, I can go c3, and then, or let's say I don't see this pawn. So let's say here, if c3, if my opponent takes, rook takes, queen takes, I can check. Oh, but this is equal? I thought this was a better king and pawn endgame for me. Apparently it's equal. Okay, g4, queen takes, f5. I went queen c5. Apparently I could have cold-bloodedly played a5. Seems too scary. Okay. c3, d4 is also okay. f6, queen d5. Okay, so rook b8 isn't the best move. The engine plays rook f8 or rook c7. That also makes sense. Rook b8 equal. Come on. Come on. Okay, takes. Rook b6 here. Queen d8. Queen f6 is equal. Why did my opponent resign? So I thought this was winning for me. I'm gonna be honest. And you heard me during the game. I was looking at c3. Wait, I'm losing? Because not rook f1. Rook f1, king f7. And I am winning. Oof. But king h5 first. And now I don't have time for anything. I have to go king f7. My opponent takes. And I'm just gonna... Oh my god. Oh no. Okay. I mean, my opponent had enough time to play on. They didn't. Luckily for me. Alright, see you in the next one. Stay tuned for more chess. Bye bye.